It's the value of having a secondary team, something to cheer on in case your other team just can't do anything. And that's what most people do. They have a secret second team to handle how their primary team does poorly and all that. For me, the Blue Jays will always be home sweet home number one for me because, it's biased. I'm from the Toronto area, so obviously I go to Blue Jays. But my secondary team has been passed around like a parcel. Boston and the Chicago Cubs basically have been my second team and all that because, lovable losers, and I have a thing for lovable losers. For hockey, it's always going to be the Leafs, with the New York Rangers creeping in as my number two team, thanks to the wonders of Blue Shirt Underground Facebook show, well, YouTube show. In football, it's kind of complicated. I don't really have a second team other than the Patriots, but the Patriots are rebuilding, so I got to find another team to cheer for. It would be easy to go Buffalo, but no, or Kansas City, but not really. That's my sister's team. It's not easy getting a second team and all that. Probably Dallas, but anyway. But for football, I mean, for basketball, it'll be a home sweet home for the Raptors for me because, Canadian politics and all that. But the team that the Raptors beat to win the NBA title in 2019 was my second team. So I was kind of conflicted. Do I pick the Raptors or do I pick the other team? But anyway, I picked the Raptors and didn't live to regret it. Anyhow, this is the story about the Golden State Warriors and one of their best seasons of all time. And no, it's not a Steph Curry season. And no, it's not the 2016 season because under the Cutter What If rule, no finals can be rematch. No finals rematch. So they have to have missed the finals. So let's talk about the 1976 Golden State Warriors. We're playing basketball sims. We're playing basketball sims. He's playing What If NBA. Cutter's doing What If NBA. Yeah. Oh, all the teams around the world got to know that the Raptors are number one. But what about the Bulls, Wizards, and Pistons? They all have great what ifs. Stories about old teams like the Kansas City Kings and maybe even the Minneapolis Lakers. But we all know we're gonna do some basketball. He's doing basketball. He's doing basketball. What ifs? Cutter's doing what if NBA? So what if NBA? So the Golden State Warriors, we will talk about in this video. They started out life as the Philadelphia Warriors. I actually did the Philadelphia Warriors in a Cutter What If because I always wanted to know about Wilt Still Chamberlain. The season in which he put up 100 points a game against the Knicks. How good they were, and they weren't that bad. They almost got to the finals against the LA Lakers. So anyway, the LA Lakers aside, the Warriors won a few titles in the Philadelphia area, and they had Wilt Stilt and Guy Rogers, but they didn't really have anything else. So basically, it was Wilt and everyone else on the team. Wilt was dominating and all that, very dominating. I mean, he had to be dominating if he put up 100 points in one game. But little did people know that the year after Wilt's famous game, the Warriors would sell off to San Francisco and move out west. I mean, they really wanted a second basketball team in California. After all, the Lakers were around. But they wanted to say, well, if you play the Lakers in LA, you can go to San Francisco and play the Warriors. So that's what they did. They put the team in San Francisco, called themselves the San Francisco Warriors, and then decided to call themselves the Golden State Warriors because, California's the Golden State. Kind of weird, but. So anyway, the Warriors were the 1975 champions and looking for a repeat in 1976, and that's the season which we'll focus on. Golden State was decent, but in 1980 they had the number one draft pick, and who did they take? Some guy from Purdue known as Joe Barry Carroll, who was his dominating center and all that. Well, they didn't really have the number one pick. They had the number 3 pick. So they decided to swap with Boston because Boston had the #1 pick because they were crappy in Larry Bird's inaugural season. So the Celtics got the #3 pick, and the Warriors went #1 and got Joe Barry Carroll, because back then in the late 70s, early 80s, if you didn't have a dominant center, you were screwed. Unfortunately, Joe Barry Carroll sucked, and fans in the San Francisco area called him JBC. Joe barely cares. He actually went to Italy, won the Italian League Championship, and then came back to the NBA. Better than ever. Anyhow, Boston came out great. The #3 pick was Kevin McHale, and he basically was huge with Bird and Robert Parrish. Speaking of Parrish, that's who Golden State also traded to Boston in that trade. So they ended up trading Robert the Chief Parrish and the #3 pick, which was Kevin McHale, to Boston for the #1 pick, which was Joe Barry Carroll, who sucked, and Robert Parrish was pretty good. The Warriors didn't really learn from their mistakes. In the 80s, they actually had a great young team by the 90s, Run TMC and all that, with Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, and the other guy, who was also Golden State Warrior. I can't remember. Chris Mullin, I guess. Yeah, Chris Mullin. Golden State had a good young team, but they just couldn't do well in the playoffs and all that. They were much an afterthought. Warrior fans today don't know the struggle that Golden State went through in the 80s and 90s and all that to be relevant. All that. Golden State in 2007 were the 8th seed and shocked the #1 seed Dallas Mavericks in 2007. So they got to the second round. Utah did beat the tar out of them, but Baron Davis was just a beast in that season. The next season, Golden State had the 8th pick and were nervous. They weren't sure who to pick. Minnesota had back-to-back picks, and they didn't take a guy that would be huge. Everyone in 2008 watched the NCAA tournament for one reason, unless you're a Kansas fan, and that's different. But for Steph Curry and all the points he got through the first few rounds of the playoffs and all that, everyone was like, who is this guy? Well, Steph Curry led Davidson to the Elite Eight, which was pretty good. And Minnesota had 2 chances and passed on him, taking Ricky Rubio with one of them. Rubio was decent when he was healthy. But yeah, Steph Curry fell into Golden State's lap. They took him. This kind of thing reminds me of Mike Bossy with the Islanders, that the Rangers and Leafs both had 2 chances to draft Bossy, but they didn't. And he fell to the Islanders. Nevertheless, with Steph Curry, they built their pieces around him, and he was producing. Golden State wasn't really the playoff juggernaut until 2015, when they got to the finals against LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers, because LeBron went back to Cleveland after leaving Miami. Thanks to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and a plunky Andre Iguodala, who basically was my favorite player for the Golden State Warriors in their run. He won MVP, Finals MVP, and the Warriors won their championship. In 2016, they had a chance to do it again, and boy, did they ever do it again. They won 73 of a possible 82 regular season games and looked good. Unfortunately, they almost botched it in the conference finals against Houston. They were down 3-1, but came back to win. Unfortunately, the old saying is, he who lives by the comeback dies with the comeback. And the Warriors were up 3-1 on Cleveland in the final, but unfortunately, Klay Thompson decided to be a dick, throw his mouth guard in the stands. Oh, that was heard, but nevertheless. Klay Thompson got himself 1-game suspension because of his flagrant foul problems. Cleveland won Game 5 and then went home to win Game 6 and then Game 7, which was an epic, I must admit. Unfortunately, it will make me cringe after Andre Iguodala had a simple layup blocked by a trailing LeBron James. And then in the last minute, Kyrie Irving put the 3 up, and Cleveland finally won a championship for the first time in 52 years as a city. And Golden State were just gobsmacked, if you will. The 2016 Warriors joined the at the time, the 1996 Red Wings. Now it's the 2023 Bruins / 2007 New England Patriots / 1906 Cubs and 2001 Mariners as teams that won the most games in the regular season all time, but they didn't win a championship at all. The Cubs went to the finals automatically and faced the hitless wonder Chicago White Sox, who used their pitching to beat the Cubs in six. The 2001 Mariners didn't even get to the final. They got taken out in the AL Finals by the Yankees. The 2023 Bruins lost in the first round, and the Patriots did lose the Super Bowl to the Giants. So anyway, Steph Curry and crew had a redemption song, which they used in 2017 and 18. Kevin Durant slighted Oklahoma City to play for the Warriors and making them a super team. He was chasing a title. Unfortunately, KD and Klay Thompson were badly injured in 2019 when Golden State won the Western Final and would face the Eastern champion Toronto Raptors, not the Cleveland Cavaliers, because LeBron left and went to the Lakers, which actually opened the door for Toronto, although Giannis could have screwed everything up. The Warriors did win a couple games in Toronto, but when it counted, they couldn't win at home. They were 0-3 at the Oracle Arena before that arena in Oakland would close and the Chase Center in San Francisco would open, screwing Oakland another team and all that. Oakland's been through the ringer. They lost their baseball team last year. They lost the basketball team, the Warriors, to San Francisco by 2019. Football, they lost their team to Las Vegas. And hockey, they lost it to Cleveland, who lost it to Minnesota, who lost it to Dallas. So, yeah, Golden State has been one of the best teams. Heck, they won in 2022, and people thought that was amazing. How Steph Curry and his young bandits like Harrison Barnes could do such a thing. So, anyway, let's talk about the 1976 Warriors. So the 1975-76 Golden State Warriors was the 31st season by the Warriors. They were the champs of the previous year, shocking the Washington Bullets, who everyone thought was going to win. They would lose the conference finals in Game 7. They put up 59 wins. That was the Golden State record until 2015. They didn't even reach the conference finals for 38 years, which was the fourth longest drought in NBA history. They get to the Final Four. The draft was 10 rounds. And in the first round, 14th overall, they took this forward from LaSalle by the name of Joe Jellybean Bryant. And who knew that Joe Bryant would be decent? He would be decent in the NBA, playing for the San Diego Clippers, and having a few good seasons. Then going over to Italy and playing overseas and helping his young son understand the game of basketball. And that son would be one of the greatest Lakers of all time. I mean, after all, he never left the Lakers. Unfortunately, 2020, he died. Yeah, of course, that's Kobe. In the 75-76 season, the Warriors retained Rick Barry from Miami, Florida. Great shooter and did his free throws underhanded. Dwight Davis, Derek Dickey, Charlie Dudley, Robert Hawkins, Charles Johnson, George Johnson, Jeff Mullins, pretty good player, Clifford Ray, Phil Smith, Jamal Wilkes, great small forward, and Gus Williams, who was the point guard. Unfortunately for them, they would lose Williams to the Sonics, and he helped them win the 79 title. They won 59 games, the most in the West by 16 over Seattle. Unreal. And all that. It just doesn't make sense and all that. Anyhow, this doesn't look great. It's like, why did the Lakers at number 6? They had 40 wins. They should have been number 4. Well, Milwaukee won the other division in the West. Back when Milwaukee was in the West. And Detroit was in the West too. And Detroit made it with 36 wins. I guess it's the top 3 in each division or something like that. And Phoenix was the best third place team, I guess. Yeah, the standings don't look great. I'll have to take a look. But yeah. So Golden State were number 1. Seattle was number 2. Phoenix number 3. I think they got spots, and then Milwaukee had to face Detroit in a 1-game playoff or something like that. So in the playoffs, they would take on those pesky Detroit Pistons in 6 games. Yeah, it's funny seeing Detroit in the West. It was actually 1-1 for the longest. It was tied for the longest time, and then they won game 6 in overtime thanks to Phil Smith's 37 points at Cobo Arena. In the conference finals, they took on Phoenix, who shocked a lot of people by getting there. They alternated wins and losses. Well, Golden State lost in double overtime in game 4. Then they were at home, and then somehow, despite Rick Barry's 20 points, they fucked everything up. And the Suns went to the 1976 finals, and that was the finals in which we saw Gar Hurd's famous shot in double overtime of game 5, although the Celtics would win in triple overtime. Rick Barry went to the All-Star game and was named All-NBA first team as in the top 5 players. Phil Smith was All-NBA second team. Gus Williams was All-Rookie team, but he didn't win the Rookie of the Year. But yeah, it's weird. It's like the 1976 playoffs. Like, how? It just didn't make sense. I guess it was the top 3 teams in each division. All that. But yeah, best of 3. Detroit did it. Golden State beat Detroit. Phoenix beat Seattle. And Phoenix went on to lose in 6 to Boston. Nevertheless, let's talk about the 76 Wars and see if they have a redemption song. So yeah, they had a rule that the top 2 teams from each division would make the 4 teams, and then the best third place team would make 5. But anyway, the Warriors would have been the home team to start because they won 59 games. The 76 Celtics only won 54. Did not know that. So anyway, let's play. Game 1, let us saw the Warriors do a good first quarter, holding Boston to 11 points, but then they lost. Dave Cowens, 21 points, 21 rebounds. He was great. They retired as number 18. JoJo White from Kansas on that team. Charlie Scott, John Havlicek, Havlicek stole the ball, and Paul Silas, future NBA head coach. On the bench, Glenn McDonald, the guy in triple overtime in the real Game 5, was the hero. Kevin Statcombe, Tom Boswell, Steve Kraberski, Don Nelson, yes, that Don Nelson, and Jim Art. For Golden State, 24 from Phil Smith, 22 from Rick Barry, Wilkes, Ray, and Gus Williams. George T. Johnson, 20 minutes, no points. Charles Dudley, 8 points. Derek Dickey, Dwight Davis, Jeff Mullins, and Charlie Johnson. Not the football Charlie Johnson. Game 2 would see the Celtics pull it off again, 102-98. Cowens, 19.16 rebounds. Can anyone stop Dave Cowens? 34 from JoJo. Charlie Scott got 5 fouls. Yeah, I know that. Golden State, 27 from Barry, Smith, and Wilkes. 13 from George T. Johnson. There's Troy Davis. Game 3 sees the Warriors do to the Celtics what they did to them and win on the road. 125-119. Cowens did put up 35 points, 20 rebounds. Rick Barry played 49 minutes, 49 of a possible 58 minutes for 24 points. Phil Smith had 27, Jamal 26. And you see the Johnsons and you see everything else. 6 points in 8 minutes by Charlie Johnson. Cowens 35 points in 50 minutes. Georgia White also played 50 minutes. Havlicek 26, Silas 19. Great job by the defense and all that. Glenn McDonald 9 points. Game 4 would see the Warriors again win on the road as Rick Barry put up 28 points. Yeah. So he did his job. Chris Williams 14 points. George Johnson 20 minutes, 1 point. They still won. Every Boston starter had 15 points. The bench, nothing really to talk about. Game 5 would take place in Golden State, and Boston would do the same thing. 107-96. Cowens 18.16 rebounds. Going back to Game 6 at the Garden. Charlie Scott 21 points. 9 points for Steve Kraberski in 7 minutes. The benches and all that, only 17 points by Phil Smith. So they go to Game 6. And in the end, Golden State won the game 130-113. Jamal Wilkes doing his job. So the Warriors will go back home for Game 7. 23 for Phil Smith, 17 for Barry. Charles Dudley, 12 points in 18 minutes off the bench. Robert Hawkins also there, too. Hey, Robert. 15 points in 12 minutes by Charlie Johnson. Because they allowed the 3-pointers and all that. 19 from Collins and Scott. 11 from Germard in 12 minutes. Ed Cersei also joining the fray. So we have a game 7. And in the end, it would be the Warriors who actually won on home turf. Boston's like, oh, we just have to win in Golden State again. They just couldn't win at home. That would have given them the title. But the Warriors win in 7. Boston would have felt humiliated. Every Golden State starter scored 14. Boston. Collins got 6 fouls in 35 minutes. Rome Anderson doing the job. 30 from Phil Smith, 18 from Gus Williams. Yeah, why did Golden State let him go? In the end, it would be the Golden State Warriors would have won the title in 7 games, would have repeated as champs, and maybe, just maybe, they would have had the magic formula and all that, and they would have had a dynasty before the 2010s. Who knows? Anyway, I'm Jeff. I'm going to do.